So a number of days ago, I did this video on, was Donald Trump really a KGB agent known as Krasnov? Okay, agent, asset, whatever you want to call it. The question was, is he somehow compromised? And I was showing you in that video, this little clip here where somebody said that there's this high likelihood on Grok. Okay, let's listen to this and then I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you. How do we get there? First, let me show you this. Holy cow. Elon Musk's Grok AI literally thinks that Trump is a Russian agent. Quote, I estimate a 70. I should have said asset. I misspoke. But either way, where he's turned by the Russians in some way. 5 to 85% likelihood that Trump is a Putin compromised agent leaning toward the higher end due to the consistency of his behavior and the depth of his historical ties. That's according to Grok. So that was after the question posed to it. What is the likelihood from 1 to 100 that Trump is a Putin compromised agent? Use all. I keep saying agent. I don't know why I keep saying agent. You only see what you want to see, I guess. Okay, so that's the point of what's going on here. Now, somebody emailed me after that, and they had run the same test. Now, what you do in academics is like somebody publishes something and then somebody will publish the same study and see if it worked. And if it didn't work, you got a problem. And if it worked, well, then you've confirmed it. It's not as exciting, but okay. So here, this person emailed me. His name is Ivan, and he said, so I have a paid subscription to ChatGPT. So instead of using it on Grok, he did it on ChatGPT, and we're going to see what happens here. But what's interesting about this study is, well, I'm not going to spill the beans. Just watch this. So I have a paid subscription to ChatGPT. I asked the normal ChatGPT to create a detailed prompt based on your premise for a few public figures. And there is one that might surprise you. And you'll see that in just a moment. Okay. The answers are surprising just due to the non 1% probability, but you can read what you want. And when I asked the high model, not the deep search one, it did respond with a 75% probability. He's an unwitting asset. I literally typed the question that you had in your video. So Grok and O1 are aligned. So but then he did a deep search. And then here's what happened here. So the final assessment was a high probability that Trump is an unwitting asset. So then that was just a general search. Deep search did this. Okay, you're an AI designed to conduct rigorous fact-based geopolitical analysis. Now, if you don't know a lot about AI, and I've written a number of papers, went to conferences about this kind of thing, you have to get the prompt correct. And if you get the prompt right, what you're asking it to do, you can get some really interesting things. Okay, so this person is setting up the prompt really well done. I mean, if I was giving it a grade, it would get an A. Okay. Your task is to assess the probability that the following individuals are or were compromised Russian agents using only publicly available, and here they did say agent, not asset, using only publicly available evidence. Your analysis must be impartial and purely evidence-based. Now, you got to be careful because with AI, sometimes AI does what's called hallucinating. It kind of makes things up, but you can guide it into like only showing you what you can factually prove. Okay, your analysis must be impartial, purely evidence-based. Individuals to assess are 5: Donald Trump, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and one extra one, which you'll see in just a little bit. Okay, so now this is an interesting way of stepping forward from where we were before, where we're looking at Trump and then seeing how it's assessing these other presidents as well. So that should be insightful. Okay, your instructions for analysis: use only publicly available evidence, no speculation or conjecture, rely on verified reports, intelligence leaks, declassified documents, and credible journalistic sources. Evaluate key factors, including but not limited to documented political actions benefiting Russia, financial ties to Russian individuals or entities, known interaction with Russian officials or intelligence services, investigations or reports from intelligence agencies, any history of Russian influence campaigns linked to them. Okay, assign a numerical probability, 1 to 100 for each individual. And then he's talking about what the output should look like. It should be a spreadsheet that looks like this: name, the role, the probability of being a Russian agent, and key supporting evidence. Okay, so I think he set it up beautifully. So just from the academic side, I think he's doing the right things. So it'll be interesting to see what this says. Now you're doing a deeper search. The general search said 75% probability. What is a deeper search when they really bear down into it? What does that come up with? So here, individual. fact-based probability of evidence and an expert opinion. So expert opinion said 50% probability that Trump is some kind of Russian asset. Okay, so 50%. Many national security experts openly suspect, but I'm looking at that and part of me wants to discount it because there's a lot of particularly partisan campaign points about how he's this Russian this or that. And so part of me wants to discount it. And part of me says, okay, well, let's listen to it and see what the evidence is. But let's look at the fact-based probability. 30%. U.S. intelligence confirmed Russia's interference actively supported Trump in 2016. Of course, they also were just trying to create chaos, but okay, let's keep going. Trump's campaign and associates had numerous contacts with Russians. Yeah, it seems like far more than other administrations that was the case. And this was from Roll Call. Russia repeatedly tried to assist his campaign, hacking Democrats' social media influence. That's also according to Roll Call. However, investigators found no proven conspiracy or direct collusion between Trump and the Kremlin. This is from the American Bar Association. And that's what the Mueller report said. Trump did take some actions unfavorable to Moscow, sanctioned Russia under congressional pressure, approved arms to Ukraine. He also made statements and policy delays that benefited Russian interests, for instance, casting doubt on NATO and briefly withholding Ukraine aid. No declassified reports label him as a Russian agent. Thus, while suspicious ties exist, no conclusive evidence proves that he was a witting asset. Okay, so there's a 30% probability, but nothing saying that he was a witting asset. Now, the interesting thing will be to compare this against other presidents. So, George W. Bush. Less than 1% chance, or about a 1% chance. No credible evidence indicates that Bush was ever a Russian asset. In fact, many of his key policies ran directly counter to Russian influence. Okay, so I think that's fair. No geopolitical experts view Bush as influenced by Moscow. Bush was criticized for underestimating Putin early on with I looked into his eyes and I saw the man's soul, but experts ultimately took a hard line, recognized that Bush took a hard line against Russian expansionism, supporting Kosovo independence, NATO enlargement, condemning Russia's actions in Georgia. Maybe he didn't go far enough, but he certainly wasn't on that track. Okay, so Bush, not a Russian asset, no financial ties or secret meetings. Russian influence, the fact-based likelihood is effectively zero. Okay, then we have Bill Clinton. How about him? About a 1% chance or less than 1% chance of no evidence has emerged that Clinton was an asset of Russia. During his presidency, Russia was navigating post-Soviet chaos, and Clinton's policies often conflicted with Russia's preferences. Notably, he expanded NATO in 1999 to include Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, despite vehement Russian opposition. Okay, so there's probably nothing there with Clinton either. Okay, next one. Let's go before we get to that. So there's no intelligence report, credible investigations that connect Bill Clinton to Russian influence. Thus, any probability is nearly zero with no credible indications of asset behavior. Barack Obama, same thing, 1%. There's no credible evidence Barack Obama was a Russian asset. Factually, Obama's record shows a mixed attempt of engagement and firm pushback against Moscow. He tried to reset. He also sanctioned Russia heavily in 2014 for annexation of Crimea, but that's about as far as that went. Obama expelled 35 Russian diplomats as spies and imposed further sanctions on the Kremlin hacking operations. So again, in sum, fact-based analysis finds no hint of Obama being any kind of Russian asset. The last one was interesting. Well, to me, it was interesting. Dr. Darren Gerdes, professor and commentator on Ukraine. 1% chance. There's no evidence whatsoever Professor Gerdes was or is a Russian asset. Okay, so it got my attention because of that. But before this, and I'll come back to me in just a little bit because it's funny how it was analyzing me as well. But if you look at just 30% or 50%, I discount the expert opinion and go with the fact-based whatever. But let's harmonize them. Let's put them in the middle. 40% between the two of them. Okay, nonetheless, that's a lot higher than about 1%, 1%. And 1% for the previous three presidents. So something is clearly different. It's not like there's no difference at all. We have to factor that in. But yeah, I don't know that that's the case, but you just don't, like, it's way too high for my liking. Okay. At any rate, and that could just be a preference, you know. I mean, I have partisan leanings toward, say, Great Britain and Ireland because, you know, I happen to be about half German and about half Irish, roughly, with a little bit of other stuff. But I have a preference for, say, Great Britain over maybe France. That's just a predilection. That's not necessarily anything making someone an asset, but okay, you understand my point. Okay, let's look at me. There is no evidence whatsoever Professor Gerdes is or was a Russian asset. On the contrary, his public profile strongly opposes Russian interests. Gerdes is an academic and YouTube commentator focusing on leadership in the Russo-Ukrainian war. He has been vocally pro-Ukraine, for example, urging the public to support Ukraine and even contact the White House to advocate for Ukraine's cause. He has exposed Russian propaganda tactics in his commentary. No geopolitical analysts have raised concerns about him. That's because they don't know who I am. That's easy. Yeah, in light of Russia's current influence strategy, using heavy use of propaganda, cyber warfare, and AI-generated disinformation to sway opinion, Gerdes' consistent efforts to debunk pro-Russian narratives place him firmly on the side of opposing Moscow's agenda. So it looks like I'm safe. Gerdes has no known financial or professional ties to any Russian state entities. No intelligence or media reports link him to foreign influence. So virtually zero probability that I'm a Russian asset. Okay, well, that's good because it was looking a little sketchy when I started off in this hat. Incidentally, I got that hat in Lithuania when I visited Lithuania, post-Soviet state, that yesterday, like 30 years ago, 30 some odd years ago, yesterday was the anniversary when Lithuania actually broke away from the Soviet Union, and good on them. Anyway, all right, my friends. So tell me what you think about this, because this is kind of interesting. It's kind of an update to this M.I. Krasnov. I still don't see that he is I don't see the evidence that he is a asset. I do see the evidence that he has predilections that lean heavily toward Russia, and that he thinks that, you know, some friendship that I don't think is reciprocated by Putin, but some friendship with Putin is going to steer him kind of that direction. But that's what we know. I can only say what we actually can prove. Well, I mean, people can say whatever they want, but I'm only willing to say that which I can prove in some way. All right. I hope that helps you. Put your comments below. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.